Hello everybody, this is Randy coming from Smart Dog School, and this is my partner Shelby. We are starting our new podcast today, Straight from a Dog's Mouth. We've developed this podcast and you're witnessing the very first one live, so we'd love to know what you think. Hit us up with the comments below, and yeah, we hope this helps. So Shelby, tell us why we're here.
So we're here because Randy and I, we've talked to a lot of people all over. So we've had people from all over the country send us dogs, people that call in, ask questions. And we think we have a lot of good information. We've come together. We have a facility here in Florence, Kentucky, with a bunch of different experts all over the thing. We have Hannah, who trains birds. We have, Peyton, who's coming from trick dog stuff. I have my own background, and Randy has his, which we'll discuss a little bit later. And we've helped a lot of clients, I think, and because we changed some things up. So go ahead and talk about your background a little bit, Randy, so it'll make a little sense to everyone.
Sure, absolutely. So coming from a background of what I like to refer to as kind of marine mammal style training. In other words, I had a bag of treats and a clicker and really no direction as to where I wanted to go in life and what I wanted to do. And naturally, a lot of trainers realize if they have some natural innate ability to be able to communicate with animals and have good luck. And that's one of the things I had going for me. But my passion was being able to help animals that were already deemed unwanted and put in a facility to where they didn't have a whole lot of choices. So my goal was to, well, in other words, kind of get them cute. that's kind of what I wanted to do. So, going towards marker training, in other words, clicker training, on and off, turning new behaviors on and hopefully decreasing the chances they'll do the unwanted behaviors. That was my goal initially, and we started Smart Dog School in 2017. And I met Shelby shortly after that. Shelby had a completely different background, and we'll let her tell you about that as well. But at that point, I had a few personal dogs that I was working every day. They looked extremely sharp, in my opinion, but I didn't have any other client dogs to work, so I had really nothing else to do. And I had a lot of fun getting started. I had a lot of individuals that helped me out along the way. I read a ton of books. One of the things I learned from reading all the books is that put 20 of us trainers in the same room, and I guarantee that if one leaves, go to the restroom, we're going to all agree that it's that person was wrong about something.
Yeah, you guys are going to come to learn that Randy can quote any book he's ever read. So he always is quizzing us and tests us here at the center. So it's pretty funny.
The books that all the way from our Karen Pryor's books, one of the Don't Shoot the Dog and all of her experiences with her marine mammals, all the way to some Gene Donaldson and other trainers that have really made a name for themselves, mostly in the, I'm going to label it here for a second, the purely positive, force-free field, even though there's some debate going on. You'll learn that there's a right and left wing, and we'll talk more about that. But our, my knowledge comes from that particular foundation, and it's expanded since then. And believe it or not, a lot of which I've learned from this lady over here, and I'll let her kind of tell you about her background and where she came from.
Yeah, so I started out showing horses when I was younger. We did small dog shows, little agility 4-H, FFA things. So I've already done a lot of stuff with animals, even if I didn't know what I was doing, just kind of making it up as I go. I was getting through high school and knowing I was going to go to college. I really didn't know what route I was going to go, so I actually went to Morehead State University, got my degree in veterinary technology, so actually a licensed vet tech. That's what I did before I really trained dogs professionally, even though I was training dogs on the side and training my own. When I was in college, I started a service dog program through Four Paws for Ability. Some of you may know who that is, up in Ohio. So I got that started at Morehead. Super cool, lots of time. It's really hard to get those programs established because you have to convince someone puppies are okay in your dorm room and they're not going to make a mess. So, but it was nice, and this program's still going on. I'm really happy with its success. Then while I was there, I trained greyhounds off the track, which right now, currently in the media, that's been a big thing. Now Florida, they've banned that. So I got to work with a lot of those dogs over the course of my 3 years at Morehead. And at a girls' home, of all places. We pull 2 dogs off the track every 12 weeks. We get them to pass their CGC to say that they would be somewhat adoptable, potty trained, crate training, leash manners, all the obedience, and then try to get them into good homes. So I got to work with a lot of people. That was my first start in actually trying to convey what I know. It's one thing if you know a lot in a closed room, you can train a dog, but to try to actually teach other people, way harder. And Randy's seen me fumble a whole lot, as we've been going through the last couple of years. And now, probably my favorite thing I do now is teach clients versus training just dogs by myself. From there, I was at the clinic full time, training dogs on the side for extra money, went down to part time, started my own business. We called it Canine Communications. And I would take a lot of unwanted, mainly Australian Shepherds. I was kind of partnered with a rescue at that time and took a lot of intense dogs. And I trained them all by myself. And I was just trying to find mentors in every book and every video to try to make these dogs a life, a little bit more normalized. Big biters. Everyone came in on a muzzle, I felt like. Had no general skill, no socialization. I learned really how to yin and yang for dog bites. So, I kind of learned a lot on how to try to prevent getting bit or try to make biting not happen. So, we talk about, putting too much pressure on the dogs and using compulsion and things. And I was more on that traditional side, long line, choke chain, keeler style, modified things. So lots of pressure. You should do it because I said, not, what a lot of people do, what Randy was doing first, which is, acquire the behavior with, motivation for acquisition. Wasn't that. It was lots of pressure. A lot of those dogs got adopted out. Some of them, unfortunately, weren't able to be. I think only 3 out of maybe 50 I work with that place. So I was pretty happy about that. And I was like in a shed I made into a training room on my property. And I was trying to acquire skill that, I didn't really know that I had and try to make it better. In 2017, Randy posted some ad online and saying, seeking a dog trainer. I'm like, I'm part-time doing my own thing. Let's just shoot him a message. And how'd that go, Randy?
I needed help, to say the least. We had we not met, Smart Dog School would not be where it's at today. I mean, we both agreed that, as far as an income goes, good dog trainers that have a decent head on their shoulders can easily make really good money, but it's not about money making when you're, number one, unhappy, number two, your clients are still struggling when they leave. So we took a rather unique approach, and we combined our two theories. Theory number one was based on marine mammal style training, all about acquisition of behavior, so getting the behaviors and making them stronger. The second theory was the exact left side, and that was more when Shelby says, Keeler style. She's referring to a trainer back in like the 60s, Bill Keeler, and definitely controversial, no doubt. But there's ways to utilize motivation in general on both sides, and that's where we, luckily, we liked each other. Yeah. We didn't fight, and
we kind of met in the middle. And
our clients are the ones that succeeded on this. Their clients are the ones that don't struggle as much because of a lot of the different theories that we blend. We rarely put titles on things. There's the force-free, and then the traditional, and then the so-called balanced. You rarely hear us even refer to these titles. But when I met Shelby, I needed a heck of a lot of help. She came in kind of that other half that was missing, filled that up, and we built a really good team up until this point. So
yeah, because without merging that, I may have been skilled with a leash, but it was really hard to convey that to just normal generalized pet people. So I felt like follow-ups were necessary, or I had to teach them how to be a trainer, which is really hard for anyone that's doing that currently in our dog trainers. And Randy on the other side, some dogs don't want to eat. What do you do when they don't want to eat?
I struggled, and honestly, what ended up happening was I started pointing fingers. Mm-hmm. I mean, I pointed fingers at whether it's genetics, whether it's a health issue, whether we simply just can't figure out a way to motivate the dog high enough, and end up pointing fingers at the owners.
Yep. And we did the same thing on my side. It was just like, it's not my fault you can't work a leash. It's not my fault. You're not doing the rules. It's not my fault. You want to keep your dog in the bed. Yeah, timing, absolutely. And which is super unfair. So trying to make something more simple that everyone can do is what Randy and I've been trying to perfect, which perfection, we're going to keep learning.
We're going to always be working on it. Yeah.
But try to make it a lot easier on the client to where, when they go home, they have goals that they can actually achieve versus, I know you can't do it, so you come back, you're going to give me more money.
Correct.
That's what it turns
100%.
into.
And that's the business of dog training, guys. Yeah. It's if we can create a wide range of people that are regular clients that come in all the time and they're constantly being charged something, then obviously that stream of income, I come from a business background as well, that revenue stream never dries. We took a different approach. We said that there's tons of dogs out there that need help. There's dogs being born every single day, and our clients, well, they got a long life ahead of them. Unfortunately, our dogs don't live forever, so we want to be able to help our dogs for life. And we'll talk more about our theories when it comes to how often you work with dogs and how big of a partnership that you grow with your clients. But that leads us into the whole purpose of this podcast and how we're going to be able to attempt to help people that can't, attend our center for either our courses or anything like that. And we wanted to address, number one today, we're just going to call it owner shaming, I guess is one thing you would call it, right? I mean, it's one of the differences that, it's one of the similarities that we were experiencing together that we wanted to get away from. And Shelby says making everything easier on clients is definitely our number one priority. So, Shelby, tell us about the quadrants of learning and how that, number one, can be confusing even to a seasoned trainer. But what we decided to go to after that.
Yeah, so the quadrants, for basic learning theory, that's not just for dogs, it's for every species across the board. It's going to go through to talk about reinforcement and punishment, right? And it's going to have like those plus and minus signs. If you ever
punishment, we don't like that word,
yeah,
right?
we don't like talking about punishment. No,
kidding.
Absolutely not.
I'm totally kidding.
And a lot of people, when they see like, R plus, positive reinforcement, you hear that all the time. Oh, we need positive reinforcement. It's not emotion. So that's where it gets really confused, and that's a hard conversation to have with the client, to try to convince them it's not emotion and it's actually just adding something. So our first, R is going to be, reinforcement plus adding something to the equation to increase the probability. That's your food. That's your clicker stuff. That's, or it could be a toy, whatever the dog likes.
And even saying it just like that, even to the point where we understand it.
Yeah, it's a lot.
We could be talking to another trainer and a trainer be in left field already, right?
Yeah.
So
we're gonna,
that's introduction to quadrants.
So we're gonna hit that very mileage. It's just like adding or subtracting. Let me pull it up there.
Yeah.
Just like adding or subtracting something to an equation to either increase the probability or decrease the probability, of a behavior. So those are the quadrants. They're already confusing. We're just talking about them right now, and we're not going to spend the next hour discussing the quadrants.
So for anybody listening that can't see our live feed here, we're going to put the quadrants up in front of the screen. As a matter of fact, we can probably just grab something and post it on there later. So
yeah, we'll throw it on the
page. The quadrants in general, if you pick up any book, and I mean any dog training book, you're going to see some type of reference to the quadrants. And even saying some of the quadrants goes against our typical language.
Yep.
I don't think anybody in the world's ever going to say the words positive and punishment in the same sentence, unless there's some type of animal trainer. The majority of animal trainers that work with anything other than canines, positive punishment never comes into play because they simply can't touch the animal. That being said, everybody's going to refer to the positive reinforcement, like you said. And why?
Makes you feel good.
That's it. It's a good feeling. You're giving the dog something. The word positive makes you feel good to say. And likewise, if you go to the other side of the quadrant, the word punishment makes
Everyone's
you feel
like,
crappy.
Abuse. You're going to beat the dogs in the head.
I don't want to punish my dog. It's a very common phrase that's said all the time. So,
but they want to tell the dog no, and we're going to get into that later.
Exactly. So, Shelby, we came up with a really interesting way of explaining this to clients. And now, obviously, this took us, 4 years to really put into perspective to the point where we could say, you're 10 years old, I can show you this and you'll understand it. You're 80 years old, I can show you this and you'll understand it. What's that look like, and how do we come up with it?
Right, so we started just kind of, kind of shooting around, how we talk to our clients, what do we say every day, we're actually trying to write a book. So that's currently in the process. Hopefully we'll get that finished.
It's a lot tougher than we thought.
Yes. And so when we were going through there, we were like, dang, you hit the quadrant side and you're like, I can give examples all day long and no one's going to grasp it unless they study it, and I'm not going to quiz anyone on it. Right. So what do our clients normally say? They came in because they want to fix problems. We already know fixing problems really can't happen with the treat,
How do we fix problems?
What?
I mean, what's the word?
Punish it.
That's it.
When it comes to stopping, right?
Right.
So, and then when you bring up that word, the clients are like, oh my gosh, these are those mean dog trainers we heard about on the internet, blah, blah, blah. So we're like, okay, how do we convey to them it's not always abuse? And so we actually came up with a triangle instead of a quadrant. And actually that's all on Randy. I came up with the 3 things and how we're going to easily describe it, but he's like, put in a triangle, dude. And I'm like, genius. Genius.
The dog training triangle.
Yes.
And you Google that, and you're going to see different levels of a triangle that work your way up to a higher reward.
Not a pyramid.
It's not a pyramid, exactly.
Yes.
This is a dog training triangle.
So 3 things, we started like, okay, we give our clients options. So here at Smart Dog School, we don't have curriculums. You may see like a couple of trick classes that have, a couple of lessons, but for the most part, most people, they come into and we're like, what do you want to do today? Right? And that's mainly my job. I do a lot of the lessons here, and they're like always listening to me like, well, we got to stop the jumping. We got to, dog's resource guarding. He needs to stop pulling on the leash. I want him not pee in the house, right? then at that point I give my clients options based on the triangle. So the first part of our triangle is you can manage a problem, right?
That's the top of the triangle, management. Yeah. What's management mean?
So management is making it unlikely or impossible to happen. So we do that with puppies all the time, right?
So that in itself is ridiculously simplistic to understand. How do you make a behavior unable to happen? So my dog is, let's just say for example, running around the house and tearing stuff up.
Mm-hmm.
The first management tool for that, or management strategy for that, would be
crate.
Perfect.
Yeah.
So we make it impossible for a dog to run around the house by simply removing the opportunity to do so.
Yeah.
Does that fix running around the house and tearing stuff up?
Absolutely not.
No, it manages it. You manage children in school by asking them to sit in a chair, right? You encourage them by different ways and motivate them by different ways, but first they have to go and sit in the seat.
Right.
You know, what motivation do they have to do that? They probably
We always joke
don't.
about, like, you know, when we get to that part of the triangle, we talk about management, and the owner's like, well, I don't want to do the other two things, and they're like, we want to fix barking. I'm like, okay, well, technically we could duct tape the dog's mouth shut,
Right.
and it would manage that problem, but obviously that's not realistic.
Right. No,
So we kind of put it in, like,
we don't condone taping dogs'
No,
mouths shut.
please don't do that.
No, totally joking, guys. They'll take that soundbite and run with it, right?
But we're able, instead of trying to convince our clients, I know right? Instead of trying to convince our clients on what we would do personally, we give them these three options, and they can pick. Management's one of them. The other one's going to be allowing something to happen or reinforce it. Okay, so dog's jumping. Well, I don't really want to manage it. I want to put them away when guests come over. I don't want to stop it, which we're going to say in a second. But, you know, fine, just allow them to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Me personally, I have a couple dogs. I don't care if they jump. But I know my restrictions on that. They can't hang out with little kids. They can't hang out with grandma, you know. But
I'll also say my dogs jump. I'm not gonna lie. People think trainers' dogs are perfect. By God, no, not at all. I've got 3 main dogs in my house that run my house, and when I say run, I got 4 daughters. So all of these dogs and all of these kids run my house. I live outside almost. I know when someone walks in my front door that my dogs are Kona, Hannah, and Duke. I know all of them are going to run up there, and the only reason one of them may not jump is because they're too fat to jump. The other 2, they may land on your shoulders. However, like Shelby said, there's rules, and those rules, I know that if I'm having somebody over, somebody's going to come over, I know that they have to go somewhere else, or I have to put them somewhere else. I'm simply managing that problem. That's just an example of management.
Yeah, and so the 3 is going to be management, you know, making it unlikely or unable to happen, whatever that behavior is. Allowing it to continue, so it's just going to reinforce the problem. So you can't ignore a behavior to go away. So if a dog does it and nothing happens, so they're going to continue to do it.
We're in fact telling them yes.
Yes, absolutely. And then the third one is stop. So if our owner's like, I want to stop it, you know, then we have to find a way to make it not happen again, which is going to be punishment.
Right, and I'll tell you what, that goes hand in hand with the very first book I ever read. You know, the book Karen Pryor wrote is called Don't Shoot the Dog. The joke behind Don't Shoot the Dog was people walking into a facility and saying, I want to stop jumping. Let's just use that for example. How can I stop it altogether? How can I make sure it never, ever, ever happens again? And in reality, she said, well, you could always shoot the dog, and that's going to make sure it doesn't happen again. That is the ultimate punishment, you know, even going towards, you know, capital punishment with humans. That's a whole other topic. But the only way to make sure a behavior never happens again is to physically get rid of the animal, right? In one way or form. Our stopping is decreasing the chances that they're going to want to do it by making that opportunity either uncomfortable or simply, well, that's it, uncomfortable.
Yeah.
You know, in one way, shape, or form.
Based on the dog.
Based on the dog, exactly.
And, so it's totally based on the dog.
Different.
So like we talk about punishment all the time, and you know it always turns into an abuse discussion. There's a lot of punishers, which we'll talk about over the course of the podcast, that you're like, oh, I could do that.
Right. There's a lot of them that simply that just simply don't work.
Right.
So I mean,
like I tried.
Exactly.
I tried, and then like we use you know all kinds of stuff, and like one dog's trying to play with that item, and the other dog's like, oh my gosh, it's the worst thing ever, and so it just doesn't work for certain dogs, and that's where client comes in. What do you want to do today? They give us whatever that is, and we say, well, here are our options.
Correct. Right?
And we just use the triangle, and we let them pick, and we discuss it just like we're discussing it right now, and they say, well, I don't want to tell my dog no, or I don't want to punish my dog. Fine, just management, or let them continue to do it. A lot of clients will either say, oh, well, I don't want to do those things, let's stop it. Let's just trial and error the punishment. And clients go, oh my gosh, and they have like this light bulb moment. Or the client says, I'm really not willing or able to do that.
Sure.
So I'm just gonna allow it to continue. It doesn't bother me that much, and that's just our tolerance. You know,
Yeah.
That's like where I tolerate certain, like one of my dogs to jump on me because I want to kiss him alone in the face. You know, do I actually really want him to jump? Probably not, but I like him up it with me. You know, and we're all different, and that's where we discuss. You know, what's the perfect dog?
Yeah, and I tell you what, there's even a tree that is, and I can't remember what book I saw it in, but there's this tree that goes up, and it takes priorities, and the priorities are all based on what you like and dislike, and down at the end of the tree it says, you know, deal with it or tolerate it, and that's where these options come in at. If your dog is barking when the doorbell rings, for example, and you walk in and he's like, man, I really don't like it, and we give you options to decrease the probability of it, to take it down, you're like, you know what, I can deal with it.
Yeah.
At that point.
They're like, I guess I don't really like it that much. You know, don't dislike it that much.
And that's where judging comes in. I mean, so barking at the door is one thing, but judging somebody based on what they allow or what they tolerate, it's one of those things that'll always happen regardless, because we're human nature, but doesn't have to happen inside of a dog training facility. It's not mine or Shelby's job or even our intent to literally change the human.
Or change the dog. So like,
right. We want to get that dog to fit into the human's life, and teaching them how that works, and that's, well, frankly, that's all they really want.
Yes,
either,
so really big on actually like reinforcement and punishment. We're going to go back to those words of the client, which I think a lot of dog trainers forget about.
Yeah.
Or pet professionals in general. You know, they're so big on like what their own opinion is about how dogs should live, or how dogs should be taken care of, or how dogs should act, or, you know, what their personal goals are, that they actually make people feel terrible.
Right, and that's not fixing anything.
No.
As a matter of fact, that's, in our profession, that's probably pushing them away, and they think all trainers are the same.
Yeah. So if someone walks in my front door and I tell them how terrible they are, you should never let your dog do this, your dog should never do this, I can't believe you let allow your dog to do X, then they're like, one, they're not going to work with me, because that's not a fun person to hang out with.
No, not at all.
Everyone's met that person that's a know-it-all, you know, it makes you feel terrible. I want to make you feel great.
You ever met a person that signed up for a dog training class and said, you know, I got two classes and I didn't go to level 4?
Yeah, all the time.
Well, there's a reason for that, guys. It's not, it didn't work. It made me feel like crap.
Yeah,
you know?
no, we should be building everybody up, you know. And so when we talk about, that's why we start doing because we do the quadrants. It's all about like, you know, either they're going to pick reinforcement, and then when I can't fix it, then I go tell you, you know, you have to do punishment, you know, or you're a terrible dog owner.
Right.
Versus now I'm like, here's your options. What makes you feel good? If you don't want to do X because you're going to feel terrible, or you're not going to do it when you go home as homework, you know, when we do lessons, then it's totally worthless. When I see you in a week, your dog will look exactly the same. We're not making that ground that you paid us to do. You know, we're not giving you that right information. So owner shaming is huge.
So reinforcement and or punishment of humans happens every single time we meet somebody, and our job, our goal, is to work with you to a degree that we can not only get to know you very well, but also get to know your dog, so that we can make your life with your dog easier. And the only way we can do that is to show you what works if we were in your shoes, make, you know, ethical recommendations based on what you tell us, and help you move forward.
Yeah.
And that's the only way to really do it. And there's a lot of trainers out there that, like she said, have an idea of what they think should happen. You share your ideas with somebody and it doesn't register, or they don't like it, you change, you evolve, you do something different. So
and then we're not trying to tear out any dog trainer. If this is how you operate and you're a successful business, you're helping people, go for it. It's just what we do here, you know. So it's much different, because you got to be on your toes every single day. And there's more specialty stuff that maybe this wouldn't work into what you do. But for pet dog training, let your clients, you know, kind of go run with it.
That's important, because most of what we do, I would say probably 95% of what we do is pet dog training.
Yeah.
Our clients have one main goal, or a couple main goals that say, I just want to be able to enjoy my dog. I want to take my dog to Starbucks and have them hang out with me and not lose their mind. So one of the questions that was given, and it's asked almost every time we have a lesson, should I let my dog do
X?
Pick a behavior, any behavior. Let's just take couch, for example. Should I let my dog get on the couch? The answer from any dog trainer here at Smart Dog School is going to be the exact same.
Do you like it?
Exactly. So if you want your dog on the couch, that's great. Let's move on. If you want your dog on the couch, and your dog is getting on the couch and growling at you and biting at you or snipping at you or peeing on it, or I could go on and on and on about behaviors that can happen on a couch that you may not like, then we're going to reference the triangle at that point, right?
We're going to give them recommendations. So, like, we're not here to say, like, the clients build everything, because obviously we give them a lot of information and recommendations. But if there is, you know, we have a list of rules, you know, that we try to start out with to start the dog on a foundation, kind of get to know who they are, see what's important to them. And if one of those things the client really wants to do could potentially become like dangerous, or is kind of making everything kind of complicated and what they're trying to, like their ultimate goal is, then maybe we'll take it away for a little bit, you know, and then they can have it back. But that's a big thing. Like, I really want the dog in my bed, I want it on the couch. Assuming it's not a safety issue or it's not causing any other problems that we're trying to address, go for it.
Right. And generally across the world, when you talk to, whether you're talking to an obedience or a behavioral specialist, they're probably going to lean towards the, you know, no, you shouldn't. And that's what they expect. You know, these clients sit on our couch and they look at us and they ask that question. And
they're nervous. They walk in the door and they are nervous.
They know, or at least they think they know what answer they're going to hear, and they're on edge. They're literally not relaxed yet. And the reason they're asking is because, number one, they already allow it, right?
Yeah.
And number two, they've read enough books or seen enough posts or seen arguments on Facebook where it says, Google, right, where it says you shouldn't do this. Well, in all reality, they walked in the front door for help, or they called you for help, they called us for help. They didn't call us to be, number one, judged. They did call us for education.
Yep.
I mean, that's the end of the story. And when we give them our experience, is all we can really do, and we make recommendations. At the end of the day, it's your dog. I mean, it's their dog, right? I mean, they have to choose what they're going to do and not do. We could show people all day long, and any trainer can, how to do something. When they leave the front door, if they're unwilling or unable to do it and they didn't like it, what we just did was waste their time, and well, they're their money at that point. So,
and already training's already stressful for the client, and it's already stressful for the dog. You know, we're changing new things. You know, your learning's already stressful, and so when we add our own personal opinions and make them feel like crap, you know, we're not doing any justice to them. When they go home, they're not motivated to practice. They're not motivated to get better. They're probably dreading to even come back in the door. And you know what happened? We didn't help the dog. We didn't help the client. And they're back to where they are. We see a lot of owners come in here that have already been to 4 or 5 other dog trainers. And we're not the greatest ones in the world. We know that. But it's really sad to see, one, and like how much investment they put in this dog. They really like this dog. They really want to keep this dog. They're very dedicated, but nothing's working. And normally it doesn't work when we push them into a corner and try to force owners to do things they're not able to do.
So would you say if a client goes to, 3-4 dog trainers, Googles their butt off online, and they read stuff and they're trying, and for whatever reason it's not working, would you say the number one reason it's not working is because of their own personal motivation? Not necessarily their personal motivation to do what needs to happen, but their personal motivation that they haven't been given a direction that's going to actually motivate them and the dog at the same time.
Absolutely.
So
absolutely.
Our, the intention of a dog trainer should be to not only figure out ways to motivate your dog, but motivate your client as well. We've been told, and I've been told from the beginning of my career, that we're not in the dog training business, we're in the human training business.
Yes.
To a degree, that's true. However, you have to be good at both.
Absolutely.
And I know you do it every single day, and a lot of our trainers start out with leash manners and then they move up to do an instructor. But I think that's probably the biggest skill, is being able to gauge your client and actually make sure that, number one, they're getting something that they like and they're actually leaving happy. We always say, make sure you end on a good note with your dog. Make sure your dog is motivated. Don't end on a bad note. We never talk about ending on a bad note with our clients. Well, if you would just do X, you would be fine, but obviously you're not doing it, so don't blame me.
Don't expect the dog to get better if you're not going to do your homework. Well, at that point, if it's not working, we got to change some stuff up.
We got to get creative. Very creative.
And we've been that way. We have a handful of clients that come in here and they really test us when it comes to our abilities.
Sure.
Because they're like, I really don't want to use that piece of equipment. I really don't want to do this. I really don't want to say that. That this rule is pretty hard. So we have to really customize a lot of stuff. And once we find that like happy medium, between both of us, so like, okay, I'll give a little bit here, but we need to try to do this. It's like they just like a weight lifted off their shoulder, like, okay.
Everything clicks and they finally relax, and at that point they can enjoy their dog.
And normally, like, whatever you're, if you have big opinions, if there's dog trainers listening, about certain things, if you approach it that way, if you really do have a goal, you want your client to get on X because it's going to help, build your way up to that point. 100%. If you just try to slap, a remote collar or prong collar on your dog, and this client is like freaking out, about using it, when they get home they're going to take it off and not use it, you may be able to get to remote. We have plenty of clients that came in here that are like, never. And they're like our biggest advocate now. And it may have taken a while, and they're like, I kind of want to try that. Because their confidence went up in you. Remember, we're strangers.
Total strangers, and
We're
they're trusting their child with us. So,
and but besides like tool stuff, I mean, if you're a trainer, you're kind of having that battle of like, man, I'm trying to convince them to use this. Really get to know them, start building yourself up. You know, start building them up, and then really kind of see their big goals, and maybe throw some of that stuff you normally do, you know, out the window, because cookie cutter doesn't work.
Not at all.
It doesn't work.
Cookie cutter's going to do one thing. It's gonna give them the opportunity to educate, but it doesn't help them learn. You know, that kind of takes us into. I had another question here, and this happens so much. And let's just take another behavior. Let's take tugging. So putting teeth on something and playing with something rough. And the question is it okay if my dog plays tug? You know, is it okay if my dog chews on stuff? Anything with its teeth. Even grabs my pants leg, or grabs my shirt, or grabs my hand. You know, that's the question. Is it okay if my dog does that? And this could be coming from a 15-year-old kid or a 60-year-old adult. And our answer?
Yeah, do you like it? And
assuming, as weird as that may sound, that is exactly right.
And then we throw in asterisks, right? We're like, assuming the dog's, you know, not causing any physical pain to human, because no one really generally likes that. Or the dog's not getting too intense, now he's resource guarding, you know, whatever that item is. So assuming there's not any like other things that are going to cause problems in the long run, tug with the freaking dog.
Yeah, and you'll again, Google, Facebook,
Don't
social
do it, it's
media.
going to make him intense, you know,
Correct.
now they're going to fight, you know, now he's, you know, there's all kinds of stuff. And there's probably plenty of dogs that do that.
Sure.
There's also plenty that they get tugged from the day that they come out of the womb until the day they die, and nothing negative happens about it.
Right, but God forbid you play tug with your dog, and a year and a half later it happens to bite a person or another dog. There has to be blame shifted somewhere, and that's what you'll hear.
There's always going to be a why.
Yeah. So let us be the first professional trainers to tell you that anything you want to do with your dog, it doesn't matter what it is, aside from hurting another human or another dog, should be acceptable in our society, but probably never will be.
Yeah.
At that point, if you want to change a behavior, you want to change something, that's when we want to reference the triangle and show you. But however, you looking at social, you looking at acceptance, you looking at other people's opinions, unfortunately, I don't believe that's something that's ever going to alter.
No.
There's always going to be judgmental individuals from one radical side to the other. They are going to stop you from enjoying your dog, period. If you want to enjoy your dog, try to look at everything from a perspective of your enjoyment and safety. At that point, things like tugging on your dog is not going to create a dog that's just naturally going to go out and bite people.
Feeding at McDonald's, you know, whatever.
Correct.
You know, me and my dog share a burrito like once a week. It's not causing any problems up to this point.
Right, and you can reference all the vet type articles you want, and you're going to hear everything from, you know, pancreatitis to God only knows what. We're not veterinarians, and we're not going to even talk about that. But
yeah. I mean, there's always going to be something that could happen.
Yeah,
you know.
However, if we walked around our world and we were, well, they do provide medicine for that, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we take Zoloft and Prozac and stuff for anxiety, things
They're
we're worried
doing
about the
dogs now,
future,
too.
and they're doing it to dogs as well. But figure out a way that you can enjoy your dog, and have somebody help you with the direction as to how you can enjoy them more, not how, you know, you can just simply create a robot. Number one, that's not nobody wants that. Sometimes they think they do, but they don't. And,
yeah, we have plenty of clients like, I want to do all this fancy obedience, and guys, I do compete in like obedience, so I do have like myself personally, like certain dogs that I show, you know, I do have like higher precision things I want to do. But my pet dog people, they come in, they're like, I want sit down, come place heel, and it's going to be in a different language, and I'm like, why? Because I mean, we can do it.
Yeah, what's the purpose though?
You know, what's the practical use? Why do you want that? And if you really just want to be able to do it because you say you can, let's do it. We got a lot of work to do.
And I do think you're actually, I don't know if it's necessarily pioneering. I'm sure there's other people that do this as well. But yeah, you compete in high level sports. You compete in extremely high arousal activities where, you know, the dogs could typically turn around and lose their cool and actually let out, you know, their pressure on you. You
oh, yeah.
and
Walker's
redirect on you.
Yeah, guys, by the way, one of my dogs has bit me in the thigh like 10,000 times when we're getting ready to go, do dog diving.
He's getting ready to fly, literally.
Yeah.
So.
And like, I tolerate that to an extent because he's jacked up, but I know the risk too of my dog being that aroused.
Right, and if you ask any trainer, should I allow my dog to bite on my leg, and they're going to say, well, absolutely not. However, our question is, do you like it? Now, yeah, Shelby, does she like her dog biting her when he's about to fly? And she's
no, but I like when he gets blue medals.
I want that blue ribbon, that $2 ribbon or whatever. Yeah, but no. One of the things that I noticed about what you do is the extremely high arousal activities is not only fun for you, but you've got this viewpoint that a pet dog and a sport dog can combine and live together.
Oh yeah, that's huge.
So most people, when they look at something, they're willing to tolerate particular things that they may not like. Mm-hmm. Shelby here has taken her sport dog, and well, she's in here right now. I mean, she's behind me in the center and laying on a place board with absolutely no accountability at all. That has built a habit. So this off switch, people think they can't get it. You most definitely can. She's proven that.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. There's a lot of I have a lot of either I don't know if they're friends, but people I follow on social media that have like pretty intense dogs, mm-hmm. and you're like, my dog can't do X, Y, and Z. I want to keep the drive high. And there's certain sports guys that's 100% true. Breaking certain things, you may not get as much intensity.
They may not be a pet and a sports dog at the same time.
But like for me personally, like I want my dog to do both. So I made a way. I spent extra time to make that happen. So a lot of clients come in the door and they're like, oh my gosh, I love that little Australian Shepherd. He's so sweet and calm. I'm like, take him, have me bring him back.
Would it reinforce you if someone told you that Walker and Ransom couldn't be pets and that? Would that a trainer telling you that?
Yeah,
would that reinforce you?
Yeah.
It wouldn't reinforce you. Right? It's something
no.
you would not like, and you wouldn't be able to enjoy your dogs to the fullest. And that goes with any of our clients or any pet owners at all. So
yeah. So we use our dogs, like our personal dogs, as examples all the time. So people are like, I want that. They come in the door and they're like, you see our dog's like sleeping, and they're like, we want that. I'm like, okay, we can give you that.
Right.
And then they see our dogs do something else, and they're like, you let him do that? And
right.
we're like, yeah, he's mine. I can let him do whatever he wants.
Like, how can you let that dog tug and chill at the same time?
Yeah,
right?
They're like, I saw Ransom like jumping off the dock like 20 feet. I saw her like biting your arm earlier when you were trying to do, very high arousal stuff, and now she's like napping, and there's like 20 dogs in the room. I'm like, we do both, and so that's where it kind of leads us into, you guys kind of get to know like mine and Randy's personal dogs, and this really helps our clients be like, so dog trainers can live halfway normal too. It's not always militaristic. It's not like very intense. Like if my dog like looks the wrong way, I'm gonna get after him, or if he's not flashy all the time, or 100% accurate in every obedience routine that he does, it's okay.
It's not 24/7 boot camp.
No, that's what they think. They're like, oh my gosh, And Randy and I both look completely different. We have different types of dogs, and we're just gonna kind of go over, how each of those actually dogs individually, not even across the board. Like I have 7 dogs. They all look a little different. I allow certain ones to get away with murder. I have other ones that can't get away with like 2 inches.
Correct.
Go ahead and tell me a little bit about Kona, Randy.
So Kona is my 3-year-old border collie. She's by far the most spoiled dog that I have. Prima donna, if you would, gets literally anything she wants, anytime she wants, goes everywhere with me. She came to me as a fearful mess, a very reactive dog. Not necessarily negative reactions, so not barking and hollering at other dogs or people, but fear of cars, of wheels, of sounds, of leaves, anything that moved, Kona would flinch and run away from. So constantly in a state of flight. And it took a little while to get past that. Now, if you know anything about border collies, they're supposed to be these big badasses of the herding world. They're not supposed to be fearful of really anything, which was probably something genetic. But anyway, she turned out to be one of the most fun dogs I've ever had. And my way of enjoying a dog is I'm kind of a sedentary person. I like to watch movies. I like to go to movies. I like to drink my coffee at Starbucks. I like to visit outdoor cafes. I like to do things that are, rather relaxing. If I could be on a beach in a hammock, that's where I'd be right now. That being said, I want my dog to be able to be right next to me and not really react or care, I should say, about the environment and be aware of me. Kona's like that. Will Kona like chase a rabbit if it runs across while we're relaxing? You damn well. She most definitely will. She still has the inside border collie, but I don't care that much about things that she does like that, aside from safety. If we're in the house, Kona's going to bark at anything that makes a sound outside, most definitely, or shuff, I should say. I'm not getting on her every single time. Now, that can be tolerated to a degree. Of course, I'm human. I have a tolerance level. But it's not that big of a deal to me. Some people don't want their dogs to make a sound. I don't care if Kona does. Let me go do the exact extreme opposite with my other dog. My other dog's, her name's Hannah. she's a Rottweiler that is probably 15 pounds overweight, maybe more. And
we don't condone that, by the way.
Not at all. I'm not saying that's good. She's lazy. I mean, so, you know, I had a Rottie for years, and, you know, the way of acquiring her was kind of like all the stars lined up, and she ended up staying with me. But she lays around and does literally nothing all day long. And I got to be honest, guys, that fits into my lifestyle. That fits into my family's lifestyle. I have 4 daughters. My mother lives with me. That's a well, and people would look at her and say, wow, she's very well trained. I can't tell you the last time I worked with her.
Right.
I mean, at all. I mean, I worked with her for the first 6 months of her life, but other than that, no. So I'm not constantly training my dogs. That's my life, though. It pales in comparison to what I see you doing every day, coming to work early, working on your dogs, right?
Yeah. I come in early, I stay late to work certain dogs.
Right.
So I have, like, you know, goals, you know, with them personally when it comes to sports stuff. But then I have other dogs that some people don't see that don't have that life. They have a different life. You know, Sydney was, you know, is my oldest dog at this moment. You know, she's 7.5 years old, going to be turning 8 soon. And that dog makes me look good. I mean, it is what it is.
She's a plant.
Yeah, you just water her, she's fine. You know, she does all the things, she doesn't move, and she's an Australian Shepherd. And honestly, I have to, like, turn people away from Australian Shepherds because they see Sydney and they're like, I want one of those. No, you don't. I have 4 Australian Shepherds, and she is a total, like, opposite of everyone else that I have. And Sydney, like, really does no wrong. Like, she's just naturally, like, kind of a gifted dog. She takes direction well. She's very calm. She doesn't have any reactivities. You teach her something in like 2 seconds. And so she makes me, always made me look good, you know, from the very beginning when I'm just fumbling with a leash.
I'll tell you what, that increased your confidence.
Heck yeah, I'm like, look what I can do, you know.
Train dogs,
and then you actually get other dogs and you're like, oh wow, maybe I need to, like, you know, go to a seminar.
What we call the MLD syndrome?
Yeah, my last dog. I'm like, dang, she's a piece of cake.
Right.
But she has no drive, right? So I couldn't do a whole lot with Sydney when it came to sports stuff, which I had, like, aspirations to do. And so then I got Walker. And Walker I got, you know, relatively locally, and I said I was a psycho, this one you got in the freaking letter. You know, I have all these friends doing, like, disc things and chalk diving and
she paid extra for that, guys.
Yeah, that's how I feel. You know, and when I got Walker, you know, he really kept me on my toes. You know, hardest dog I've ever potty trained in my whole life, barks incessantly. I think it's genetic, honestly. Now it's better, but I've
still
learned
like a flinch.
I've learned to, like, tolerate some of the barking, but he can get away with murder. You know, I'm on him all the time. You know, like, he couldn't really live many places. He's tried to live at Randy's for, like, babysitting, and Randy said he's trying to make all my dogs mad because that dog will take an inch.
Horrible influence.
Greatest temperament I've ever had. I may never have a dog that loves me more than that dog in my whole life. You know, he like cuddling in bed. Let's watch Netflix. You know, he jumps on everyone, everything.
By the way, my dogs sleep in bed too, guys.
Yeah, so he's, you know, he's just like a 1 in a million dog. I'll probably never have another one, but he wears me out, you know, when it comes down to it. But he can have whatever he wants. Then I have, like, Ransom, Pride and Joy. She's, so Walker, he's a 3-year-old getting ready to turn 4. He's turning 5. No, he's 4 years old. He's getting ready to turn 5. Oh my gosh, my baby's getting old. Australian Shepherd. And then he came from, like, working lunch, and his mom, like, herded, his dad herded a whole bunch, some sports stuff. And we do, you know, mainly dock diving with him. Some obedience, but C's get degrees when it comes to him. He's not the most obedient dog. He's just super jacked up all the time. Then I have Ransom. She's a Beauceron. I've had a ton of fun with her. She's mute, super quiet. I was, like, really, like, disturbed. I'm like, why isn't she barking? Like, there just might be something wrong. And I work with that dog every single day. You know, I have high goals and aspirations for her. That dog sleeps in bed. He's always in my room. That dog's, like, never kenneled. Not because she can't be kenneled, because she can be. She's always with me. Like, there's never a need to be kenneled when she's at my hip like an umbilical cord. She's with us right now. And then I have my 2 misfits. Gipper. Gipper was acquired.
Ask me about Gipper, guys.
Gosh. Yeah, Randy and Gipper aren't the best of friends. Gipper was acquired. He's gonna be 6. When I was doing some rescue work, so I was training him. One of my like friends at the time was like, hey, I gotta go somewhere. Can you watch this dog? Like, he's been returned like 4 times to the rescue. He's bitten a bunch of people. He's attacked a bunch of dogs. He's terrible in the kennel. Like, I trust you to handle him. Can you just watch him for a week? I have to go out of town. I'm like, sure. Okay. Shows up, growling, lunging at the kennel. I'm like, this is going to be a fun week. So I decided to put some, like, a little bit of work into him. I was just ready for him to go home. And I came home one day, and I see my husband outside with his dog. Like, no muzzle on, like, long line, dog's jumping around. And I'm, like, seeing if there's any blood anywhere. And I'm like, okay, everything's He's like, okay, I'm just gonna keep my cool. And I'm like, how would you go put that dog up when we gotta go do X? I was making up a lot.
Did he know about the dog at this point?
No, I kind of dropped the ball on that one.
Okay.
Usually he doesn't touch any of the training dogs, so I really didn't say like, hey, don't like get this one out, because most of the ones that came in at that time, you know, had some aggressive stuff. For whatever reason, got the dog out of the kennel, which he had never done. Luckily, he still has fingers to this day. And we put him up, and he was like, that's the coolest dog I've ever met. And I'm like, no, he's not. And I gave him a little backstory, and he was like, no, there's no way he'd ever bite anyone. And I still have this conversation today because we kept him. I said, can we please keep this dog?
How many years ago was that?
Freaking 4.
Yeah.
And that dog is a walking liability, just so everyone knows. Even with me, like him and I, like for the most part, don't get along. We have our we have our understandings. So you go outside, go potty, come back in. But he's on high restriction because of like, at any point, could he bite a dog or a human? Sure. Is it much better? Absolutely. But you know, there's certain dogs, you know, he can't hang out with. Like we have like a list of rules we give our clients. He's like got every single one of those, every single one, just so we can manage him. You know, we talk about management all the time, and I put a lot of work into him. If he may have something, I mean, obviously genetic going on, but a lot of hours, a lot of time. It's definitely a 180, but he's not Lassie, and he'll never be Lassie. And so for us to keep that dog, we knew we had to put a lot of work, you know, at home, so he doesn't hang out when guests come over. There's certain people that he likes, there's certain people that he may not like, and just to keep everyone safe, we knew to keep that dog, this is what we had to do. We had that conversation.
From almost one extreme to the other, from Sydney to
Ransom Walker, do whatever you want.
Ransom, yeah.
Yeah.
So all of them, it just shows, you know, we have a lot of our clients that ask that question, like, well, if I put the restrictions on, you know, Fluffy, will Molly be you know, jealous or fair? Is that okay? And
now, we don't live in a fair household. It's kind of like, if you can handle it, you can handle it. It's definitely a dictatorship.
Kind of a dictatorship, yeah. I was gonna say that.
You know, and Gipper's completely happy and healthy. He likes his routine. He's not a dog that wants to go out places. So if there was someone that's like, you know, wanted to adopt him, I was like, I want to go to cafes and do stuff. He's not the dog for you.
Correct.
You know, so we obviously do a lot of research when you get your dog. And people will say, like, make sure they fit in your household. And that doesn't have to be just breed. You know, I have 4 Australian Shepherds, and they all are way different. So just because you get a certain breed doesn't mean they're going to act like the one you just saw out in public.
And the same thing goes with just about any breed. When we're talking about, you know, people like the German Shepherds because of the view they see on YouTube.
Yeah, all these high trained, you know, like police, military dogs. I'm like,
or even pit bulls for that matter.
Yeah.
And you know what? Actually, that kind of takes us into almost towards the end of our podcast, but takes us into our two. We're calling them challenging dogs. We both have one apiece, and I'm sure we'll have more. You get in this business, you collect dogs, but tell us about Nash.
Nash. So Nash was another like foster fail. Had him in. I had that dog for 3 years before I decided to keep him. And Randy saw the day that I decided to make that decision.
Had a tad bit of influence on that.
Yeah. So Nash, I got him in. He came from a hoarding case. Just gonna be a foster. Train him a little bit. He had killed dogs. He was, you know, he's deaf and blind, Australian Shepherd. They call those double merles.
Deaf and blind, both.
Both, yeah. Complete, like, 0 hearing, 0 vision, runs into everything, can't hear, you know, a train go by.
Okay.
So I got him, and, like, the first thing, great with people. Doesn't have never had any human issues, you know, at all. But, like, smell a dog, he's gonna just, like, go at any point, just react, and, like, lunge at the end of the leash, just try to grab him and snag him. Mm-hmm. So I spent, like, probably 6 to 8 months just working on the reactivity of, like, the smell of the dog doesn't mean you have to kill it.
And so not just a snip, not just a bite just to get rid of the
no, he's going to grab it
or whatever. He's going to literally try and kill it.
Yeah. And so he's on muzzle for a while, and we're doing a lot of, you know, increasing criteria of being around dogs, the exposure stuff, and was much better. Well, that's a hard dog to place. Dog that, like, may or may not get along with dogs. He was okay with my pack after about a year. He could hang out with everybody, obviously with supervision. It was fun. You know, he was comfortable. He had his routine. But, like, I didn't want to take that chance of sending him somewhere else, and maybe he may not get wrong with that dog.
Yeah, I mean, the potential for him to kill a dog is increased because he's already done it once.
Yeah, so if it does happen, it's going to go south.
Sure.
And I don't know those people's dogs. Your dog may get along with other dogs. Not all dogs get along with each other. My dogs kind of know boundaries. They've lived, you know, with each other, and then they got to see, I mean, hundreds of dogs come through. And so they're kind of like to the point, like, I don't care about a dog. You know, they're not rushing the leash. They're not trying to get anyone's business. You know, they all have general manners regardless of where they came from, because that's just a requirement. You know, when you're a dog trainer, your dogs have to be halfway stable. And so had him for a couple years. He fit in. It was just like normal having him there. And then we actually got a really nice application who wanted to adopt him. And probably to this day, probably still wants to adopt him. And
I'm sure they would.
Yeah, we had them all lined out. They were moving at the time, so it was about 2 months out. I knew like Nash was going to leave. and he was going to go across the country. I knew I was never going to see him again, but I was okay with that. This would be good for him. He's going to have more freedom. You know, he's going to have someone that really loves him. My time's like dictated and spread very thin between all my dogs. Then like it got to like a week out when he was supposed to leave, and I was like, let me go ahead and take him to the groomer. We'll get him all pretty, get his bandana on. And this dog does not attack dogs. He has like full obedience, like with touch cues, which is very, like at the time was like really new. I thought I was like this big genius, but someone else had ever done it.
Well, I tell you what, it's rare to say the least. So. And
so like he knows his sit, down, come, place, stay, all the stuff based on how you touch him on his body. And so I was kind of just brushing up all of his stuff at the center, and I'm like, oh shit, he's leaving. I'm never gonna see him again. What'd I do, Randy?
The toughest woman I've ever met in my life breaks down, starts, I shouldn't say breaks down, tears up. Let's just say that. And from a dad's perspective that has multiple daughters at home, yeah, that wasn't happening on my watch.
He's like, just keep her.
Yeah, and
I'm like, no, I can't.
So she did, and you know, he's a fun dog. But the point here is, he lives a different life than Gipper. Gipper lives a different life than her other two dogs. You know, Walker and Sydney and Ransom, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You know,
Nash is deaf and blind, so he can't have free room in the house. That's dangerous. One, I don't want to knock over all my stuff, but who knows what he could get into, fall down the stairs.
He hurt himself.
Yeah,
right.
I don't have a fenced yard. I live on a bucket acreage, and I'm not fencing the whole thing in for that dog. Sorry, guys. And so when he goes out, he's always on leash. He can't run around by himself because who knows where he'd end up. And he generally likes his kennel. And if I take him out of his kennel, and like actually when we're out and he can hang out, he just wants to sleep. I swear that dog sleeps 23 hours a day. Pee, poop, eat. He's napping somewhere in the house.
But his life fits into her life fits into his. It's a perfect partnership, guys. And the reason we wanted to bring all this up and to kind of tell you how a trainer's dogs can live differently than others is not to say one way's better than the other. It's to say, once we figure out what works for that dog, and once we figure out what works for that person, we can apply it.
Yeah. And
all of that, every bit of that, has to do with what reinforces Shelby.
Yeah.
And what works for her dogs.
So certain dogs, like, come sleep. Like, my husband's gone all the time. He works a swing shift. So, and I live out in the middle of nowhere. My dogs sleep in the bed. Dogs that can handle sleeping in the bed. So that's Walker and Ransom. That's it. Or there's sometimes, like, I got some downtime. Normally I'm leaving and going all over the place to show. There's days that it's rainy and gross outside. I'm not taking the dogs out hiking. I'm not going anywhere. What do? Sit on the couch, share popcorn, watch Netflix. Dogs are cool. You know, they're up on the couch with me. I'm feeding them, I'm feeding them stuff all the time in the car. Like, oh, I don't want to finish this. Here's part of my burger. We do all kinds of stuff that most trainers are like, oh my God, you can't do that. It's
them particular goals. It's that openness and creativeness to train certain dogs certain ways and to acquire what you like.
Yeah, just because it reinforces me is why I do it.
Exactly. The whole concept of going out and buying coats and treats and toys and all of that.
The aisles are bigger, Randy.
I know it, right?
Than training equipment.
Let's face facts. The training equipment at a big box retailer has 5 or 6 hooks when coats have 50. It's not fun to go buy training equipment because we know it's work. It is for us, it's kind of. But for us to go buy coats, that reinforces us.
Cute.
For us to buy treats and toys and antlers and givers, this is all stuff we like. It's not necessarily things that we have to do or have. All of that being said, the training concept beyond what can happen for like safety reasons is what you should like as well, and that's Smart Dog School. I mean, we talked about her struggling one. I have one as well.
Yeah.
And this one will be struggling till the day he leaves this world. His name's Duke. Duke came to us, well, actually, before I even met Shelby, Duke was a student of mine. He was enrolled. By the way, guys, this is when I very first started, my confidence went up, and when my confidence went up, it went up aggressively and turned into cockiness, turned into ego, and I thought at that point...
Can't be cocky if you can't back it up.
By God, I know that now. I literally thought I could fix any dog because I had a lot of success at first. And Duke came in with the all-time, my dog has separation anxiety. We hear it all the time. Very rarely is it that, truly that. And there's degrees of it.
Just because your dog whines because you walk out the door is not full-fledged separation anxiety.
Not at all. And Duke came into me and they told me all that, and I can fix it. Here, they enroll him. I start working with him. 2 days later, actually less than 48 hours, was the first and only client so far that I've actually called and said, you know what, I'm going to do this dog more harm than good. I need you to come get him, or come talk to me at least. She wasn't at all surprised. You know, this client turned into a really good friend of mine. Excuse me?
What was he doing?
Well, he was hurting himself.
Right.
And not just hurting himself a little bit. I'm talking, the dog was ripping, you know, teeth out of his head. He was chewing his paws off. He was grabbing his tail and trying to rip it off his body. I mean, he was doing extreme things that you're like, oh my God, there's something mentally wrong with this dog.
Yeah, like self-mutilation because he was contained, you know.
Correct.
Super
And a dog that'll take his head and ram it into a crate nonstop, no matter what, there's something else going on in there. And yes, it's behavioral training, probably some genetics, but at that point, it wasn't my job to sit there and why, and point the finger at the owner. I knew that going back home, if he went back home, he'd be safer. So I did that. We fast forward, I don't know, 6 months. I tried it again. I invited him back. We tried it again. We had some success, but it was very, very little.
And this lady, the reason it was a big deal was because she was living in like a condo, an apartment, and like you can't. It's not one thing he doesn't want to be in a crate. He would bust out of doors.
He lived in the house at first, and when she moved, it got even
and he destroyed things that
yeah.
she has to try to explain to somebody else because she wasn't owning it, you know, at the second time.
Right, and you know doesn't matter what house or what condo you're in. If the dog literally wants out and has to, and will put up that much fight, we'll get out. So fast forward, and I met Shelby by this point. We had a facility. We were more equipped at that point, and safe to say, my ego was gone.
Yeah, they'll humble you.
That very much humbled me, and I wanted to help this dog. By the way, Duke is a pity mix of some kind. He looks like he's all red dotted up, almost looks like a spaniel, if you would. But bigger dog, probably 50, 60 pounds. Very high drive, very just friendly as all get out. You would never think the dog has any issues, but when he's alone, it's the end of the world.
Yeah, drooling, not eating, yeah, obviously hurting himself, destroying things.
I don't know what medicine they had him on when
all the things. I think.
Just trazodone, you name it, whatever would knock out a horse. I mean, literally. So, so we fast forward again, and I agreed to try again, right? So we jointly agreed. We got the best crate, right? We went getting an impact crate, the one that they, I don't know, it's like $1,000 crate. I mean, the thing's like supposed to be the toughest out there. And we started working the same way we know, and we've taken advice from individuals from all over the country, from stuffing his crate full of straw, or
teaching him just how to down with the door open, trying to counter condition it, trying to punish any adverse things that he was doing that could be harmful to himself to keep him safe. And better, not great.
Correct. And we got to the point where he was acceptable for us in our environment.
Yeah.
Correct. We all know that dogs are contextual. They change context. That's why you can get a well-trained dog in a couple weeks, go home in a couple months, they might look like they've never learned a thing in their life. So we sent him back home after, I don't know, what was it? We kept him like 8 weeks at that time. It was a long time.
Yeah. And we were like hopeful.
Yeah. And guys, we do short-term deals. We shoot 5 days, 10 days, something like that. We were very hopeful of this, and then she moved into that apartment.
Yes.
And that's when it hit the fan again. We went to the apartment a couple times.
And she's just kind of unable to do kind of what we did.
Yeah, exactly right. I mean,
and she's
what we did was pretty intense. I mean, we were asking for a lot at that point. Needless to say, it was not reinforcing to her to do what we needed to do. It was a ton of work. So I took him back in. We're working with him again, and
light bulb.
Yeah. Ironically, we said one of the things people do, and we discourage most of the time, is I want to. What do they say? I want to get him a friend, right? I want to get my dog a friend. My dog, because they're wanting the dog to run around the backyard and play, and we typically say, you know what, you may just wind up with 2 challenges versus 1. Notice I didn't say broad problems, because dogs are all challenges regardless. So I told you about Hannah. Hannah's my big lazy Rottweiler. Well, we said, what if?
Because what had happened before that is we put him in crates really next to other dogs, and he was better.
Yes.
He wasn't breaking out. He may have been drooling and stressful, but he wasn't hurting himself.
That was in between my dogs, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yes.
And so then, he was in between Randy's dogs at Randy's home because we had to watch him 24/7, cameras on the dog, all the things, and he was better. Not impressed with the crate, but much better. And we were like, oh my God. Well, that's why he went home and like destroyed everything. He was actually a lot more confident, or who knows what, mentally. And she can't do that. We can't say go buy 3 dogs that he generally likes, put them between them, and he's gonna be fine.
Correct.
So what'd you do?
Well, at that point, we figured out that yes, he wasn't hurting himself. So self-mutilation was gone, at least to a degree. He would still want to bolt out the crate when we finally got there. He would still lose his mind if somebody came in the room. So what we did is we took the concept of another dog. And at this point, we had a 36-inch crate. So if you guys know sizes. And my Rottie's about 85 pounds. And Duke is about 60 pounds, give or take. And I put them in together. That's what we did.
Don't recommend this at home.
Not at all, ever. Please don't do this. And the concept that a trainer up north, and I can't remember his name, but he trains with the monks. I can't remember his name off the top of my head. Anyway, he had this thing out there that said if you condense a crate down with straw, that the dog will naturally almost, they'll increase their confidence, decrease anxiety. Anyway, Hannah ended up doing that for him. That was what we saw visually. We joke now, we say, you know what, I got my dog a service dog. That's kind of what happened. And ironically, it worked. And it worked to an extreme degree.
So Randy ended up keeping Duke, and we actually found Duke's owner at the time a really nice dog that she loves heavily.
Yeah, this little chocolate lab.
So we kind of like traded him out, and now she's like, the owner's much happier, Duke's much happier, he works out in Randy's home. That doesn't happen all the time. No. But you have to get creative, and
we have shared parenting, we call it. And so Duke now, what's Duke do now? So this is a year and a half later. Duke makes all his own decisions now. My house usually has somebody home, so we were able to kind of monitor him a lot. Now Duke can do just about anything he wants, and he doesn't care. Well, he doesn't care when people leave the room. He doesn't care when people leave the house. We tested him out to a degree, and we now put them two together. If we're all gone, they stay together. Yes, he has some, I don't know, I just call it anxiety issues at different times, depending on what's going on. But most of the time now, his confidence is so high that he can live a normal life, a normality life with us, and we don't have to, I don't have to rely on somebody constantly taking care of me.
Right, and he's not hurting himself.
He's huge. Not, that's it. He's fatter now, he looks nice, and so he's not drooling, he's not hurting himself. And was that a solution to his problem? It worked. It worked, right? Yeah. It reinforced me. I know that. It reinforced his owner. It reinforced
everyone was happy
family.
At that point.
My wife absolutely loves him. Duke sleeps closer to my wife than I do, guys. So every night in the bed, it's insane to tell that story and to see it go that route. The point of all of this is each individual dog you can enjoy once you figure out what you personally like and how you personally live. So, and that was the whole point of this entire segment was how can we as trainers help reinforce our owners to a degree where they can enjoy their dogs to the fullest. Education,
giving them options,
one-on-one training options,
not pushing them in a corner, not shaming them, trying to help them get to their goals.
Drawing out the triangle to the point where they have those options.
Yeah, and the triangle, just remember, if you can manage something, allow it or stop it, that's going to encompass everything, that could potentially happen. And, when you decide to make your decision on what you're going to do about, whatever that is, behaviors, either acquiring something or trying to fix something. So.
Right. Well, guys, this was our first episode of, Straight from the Dog's Mouth. If you have questions, we'd love to hear what you think. We'd love to hear any open questions or even just opinions on what we did, and if we can make it better, we'd love to be able to do that. We have to hear from you in order to evolve. We'll come back to you next week, same time more than likely. Yeah. We'll put together another topic and see if we can help more people out with that. We'd love to hear from you, like I said. And thanks for watching. This is Shelby and Randy, guys. Straight from the Dog's Mouth. This is Smart Dog School, and if you have questions, let us know. Thanks a lot.